As I got out of my car in the parking lot and started walking on the cobblestone path, I could see cherry blossoms gently falling from somewhere. I filled a bucket with plenty of water, took it along with the bouquet of flowers I bought on the way, and placed them in front of the grave. "It's been a month, Catherine." I spoke to the gravestone. "My wife Catherine passed away from stomach cancer 5 years ago. Today is her monthly Memorial Day. Whenever I visit the grave, I offer a bouquet of roses, her favorite flowers. Then, sitting cross-legged in front of the gravestone, I report the month's events. My name is George, and I turned 34 this year. I work in sales at a medium-sized company, and it's my 11th year there. Despite my hard work, my naturally clumsy nature leads to minor mistakes, and I remain a regular employee without much promotion. I share my daily struggles and failures with my wife in the afterlife, with a bit of grumbling, through the gravestone. And also about our son, Michael. Michael is now a 7-year-old second grader. After school, he goes to after-school care, and my mother, who lives nearby, picks him up. Michael is healthy and going to school without any illnesses. He's made some good friends and seems very happy. Also, I recently started taking him to French language classes. Next month, I'll bring him here with me." While talking, I picture my wife's happy smile in my mind. This time is a blissful moment for me. Even 5 years after her passing, she vividly continues to exist in my heart. She is my solace and emotional support. After visiting the grave, I went to pick up my son at my parents' house. I'm home. As I opened the front door with my spare key and entered, I heard noisy footsteps coming from the living room. "Daddy, welcome back. Look, look. Grandpa and Grandma bought this for me." In Michael's hand was a popular gaming console. "Wow, that's great. Did you thank them?" "Yes, I did." "Welcome back, George. Will you stay for dinner?" My mother peeked out from the kitchen. "Yes, of course," I replied as I walked into the kitchen and started talking to my mother, who was cooking. "You bought him the gaming console. Isn't that quite expensive?" "Don't worry about it. Did Michael beg you for it? You could have told him to wait until next month, his birthday." "It's okay. We'll give him another proper present for his birthday." "Mom, you spoil Michael too much, though I'm grateful. Anyway, tonight's dinner is your favorite, jambalaya." "Oh, great." Then I went to the living room, where my father was engrossed in the game with Michael. "Go, Michael." "Yes, that's it." "Grandpa, be quiet for a bit. Looks like you are more into it than Michael." I sighed a bit in amazement and sat down on the sofa, petting our cat, Whiskers, who jumped onto my lap. Both my parents adore Michael, and Michael is very fond of them. Our family relations are good. When Catherine died, Michael was just 2 years old and didn't really understand the situation. But as he realized his mother was gone, he would cry, "Where's Mommy, Mommy?" Seeing Michael like that was heartbreaking, and I hugged him and cried together. It's hard to believe that little guy is already in elementary school. Time flies. Now, Michael doesn't remember his mother. "Next time, let's play together, Dad." "Yay, that sounds good." I smiled back at Michael, who was looking at me. There is a big trade show our company is participating, so I attend there as part of the staff explaining our products. The venue was bustling with lots of businessmen in suits. In the midst of it all, I was engaging with people passing by our booth, trying to draw them in. I let interested folks try our product samples, fill out surveys, exchange business cards, and hand them brochures. It's a pretty tiring job, standing from morning till evening. Looking at my watch, it was almost noon. We take turns for lunch breaks, so the booth is never unattended. That's when the company's president, Mr. Johnson, showed up at our booth. "How's it going, George?" "Mr. Johnson, Good to see you. Things are going smoothly. I reported to Mr. Johnson the number of people who had filled out the surveys. So, it's going fairly well then. By the way, George, have you had lunch yet? No, not yet. Then let's go eat together. I have something I want to discuss with you. I wondered what Mr. Johnson, our company president, could possibly want to discuss with someone like me. It couldn't be a transfer or, worse, a layoff. But I hadn't made any major mistakes that would harm the company. Maybe it's about my sales performance. I followed Mr. Johnson with this thought in my heart. We left the exhibition hall and went to a nearby fancy Italian restaurant. Entering the restaurant, Mr. Johnson told the staff, "I'm meeting someone here." A meeting. I hadn't heard about this. I wondered who it could be when Mr. Johnson spotted the person he was meeting inside. "Hey, Emily, long time no see." "Uncle, it's been a while." The person Mr. Johnson called Emily stood up from her chair. She was a slender woman with long, straight black hair, looking quite beautiful. She appeared to be in her late 20s. She wore a dark brown knee-length skirt and a neat beige knit top. Her large eyes made her strikingly beautiful. If Mr. Johnson called her uncle, then she must be his niece. Mr. Johnson gestured for me to sit in the chair opposite her. "George, take a seat here." "Okay." I sat down right across from her, as instructed. "George, this is my niece, Emily." Mr. Johnson introduced her. I nodded politely. "I'm Jared, and Mr. Johnson has always been a great help to me." "I'm Emily. I've heard a lot about you from my uncle," she said with a smile. I wondered what Mr. Johnson had been telling his niece about me, and why she was here at this place. Feeling a bit out of place, I glanced at Mr. Johnson. Then he said, "George, it's been 5 years since you lost your wife. It must have been tough, but maybe it's time to start a new chapter in your life. Don't you think?" I was momentarily unsure of what was being said to me. Mr. Johnson continued to speak. "Emily will be turning 30 next year, but she's practically had no luck with men. She's at the right age for marriage, yet she doesn't seem too keen on the idea. It's quite a concern." Then it clicked for me. This was a setup for a blind date. I felt like I'd been deceived by Mr. Johnson into this matchmaking situation. Emily lives alone, can handle all household chores, has a kind nature, and loves children. I'm sure she'd get along well with Michael. "Mr. Johnson, I appreciate your words, but I have no intentions of remarrying. This is quite uncomfortable for me." Even as I said this, Mr. Johnson didn't seem to listen. Now, George, you've been saying that, but it's been 5 years. Isn't it about time? I'm sure your wife in heaven would want you to be happy." Hearing that, anger surged from the pit of my stomach. He didn't know anything about my wife and yet dared to speak as if he did. Catherine was incredibly jealous. The idea of me remarrying and her being happy about it is out of the question. But since he's Mr. Johnson, I couldn't talk back. Then he, seeming quite pleased, continued. "It must be hard to move on from your wife, but don't you think Michael would be better off with a mother? What do you say, George, about starting a new family for Michael's sake?" Mr. Johnson even presumed to decide how Michael felt. A child his age must still long for a mother. He didn't know anything about Michael, yet confidently made such assumptions. Michael never said he wanted a mother. In fact, he's shy around strangers, and having someone suddenly become family would surely be stressful for him. As I remained silent, Mr. Johnson handed me the menu. "Come on, order anything you like. It's on me today." Reluctantly, I ordered a random pasta. Emily ordered the same. "Then, I'll step out for a bit. You two talk." With that, Mr. Johnson stood up with the bill and headed towards the cash register. An awkward silence fell between Emily and me. I was angry with him. I even considered leaving the restaurant right then. But this woman in front of me wasn't to blame, and it would be a waste not to eat the food we ordered. As we waited for the food, Emily hesitantly spoke up. "I'm sorry for how sudden this is. My uncle probably didn't tell you about today, did he?" "No, it was a surprise for me too. Actually, I was only told we were going to have dinner." She looked troubled, her eyebrows furrowed. "Is that so?" I felt a bit relieved. So she was in the same boat as me. My uncle kept insisting that there was a perfect match for me at his company, and I should meet him, but I've always refused. He praised you a lot, George, said you're compassionate, a bright mood maker, and a valuable person in the company. "Is that so?" I was surprised and pleased that Mr. Johnson spoke so highly of me. But this was a different matter. "Emily, you seem like a wonderful woman, but I've decided never to forget my wife and don't plan on marrying again," I stated firmly. Then she smiled and said, "That's okay. I have no intention of getting married either. I was just tricked into coming here by my uncle." Hearing that, I felt relieved. "So, we're in the same boat, then." She let out a soft chuckle. "Yes, I'll talk to my uncle about it." After a while, the pasta we ordered was served, and we began sharing our personal stories. "I actually have a someone I love." Hearing her say that, I was surprised. "You're not planning to marry him?" When I asked her, she looked down, hesitated for a moment, and then said, "My partner is a woman, so we can't get married." I was taken aback. "I see. But everyone, from my parents to my relatives and even colleagues at work, keep telling me I should marry soon, completely disregarding my feelings." I laughed. "I understand. It's nice that they care, but they don't know our situations." "Yes, I know they mean well, but it's like an unwanted favor, isn't it?" Emily and I really hit it official. People like Mr. Johnson and others around us assume too much that marriage equals happiness. It's quite presumptuous to think someone's unhappy just because they aren't married. Exactly. There are many different forms of happiness, and marrying someone of the opposite sex isn't necessarily the pinnacle of happiness, I believe. That's right. Do I look so unhappy to others? My son and I are content with our life as it is. Sure, it's sad and lonely without my wife, but that doesn't mean I should welcome another woman into our family. I don't plan to love anyone but my wife, ever, and I don't think I'll meet anyone greater than her. I was so engrossed in our conversation that I forgot to eat the pasta in front of me. "George, you really love your wife. She must be a lucky woman to be loved so much even after she's gone." It's embarrassing to hear that, but it's nice to hear. Everyone, including Mr. Johnson, seems to think my wife in heaven would want me to remarry. That's nonsense. If that were true, what would happen when I go to heaven? You're right. She might be looking forward to reuniting with you someday, and it would be sad for her if you had another wife. I had never met someone I could talk to so comfortable. I was so happy, I would have held her hand if allowed. You understand, exactly. For me, forgetting my wife and remarrying would be like leaving her, but even if she's not by my side, I still love her and have no intention of parting. I get it. If my partner were to pass away, I'd feel the same. I can imagine being with anyone else, and besides, some people are perfectly happy living a fulfilled life with their hobbies or work, even without a partner or marriage. Everyone's idea of happiness is different, yet many people still think romance or marriage with the opposite sex is the only form of happiness. I'm almost 30 and single, and people often tell me I should find someone and get married soon. I totally understand. I have a friend who's not interested in romance or marriage. He's successful in his career, really wealthy, has lots of friends, and seems happy going on trips and camping often. Right. The notion that you can't be happy unless you are married is such a biased view. There are so many other ways to find happiness. During our 1-hour lunch break, I talked with Emily to the fullest. We exchanged contact information and said our goodbyes. We planned to go out for drinks sometime, including her girlfriend. I thought about inviting a friend of mine who's also not interested in marriage. They'll probably have a lot in common. When Mr. Johnson later asked me, "How did it go?" I told him honestly about my feelings. Hearing this, Mr. Johnson finally seemed to accept it. Later, I invited Emily and her girlfriend to a barbecue party with my friends. My friends, unlike the older generation, don't harbor any prejudices, and Emily and her partner seemed comfortable. Emily plans to come out to her parents and Mr. Johnson about her girlfriend. I hope they understand. I hope so too. Happiness comes in many forms. Being true to oneself and living happily in that way is the best, I believe. My name is Mike. This year I turned 40. I work at a small town factory near my home, manufacturing auto parts, mainly car lights. My job is to supervise temporary workers lined up on the assembly line and ensure we deliver the specified lights by the deadline. Some of these workers have issues that trouble me. And one such case is the recently joined Emily Smith. There are no problems with her work or performance. In Emily's case, it's not so much a problem as it is a concern. "Emily, no lunch again today?" I asked her, sitting in a corner of the cafeteria during lunch break. She looked up at me awkwardly. "Yes, I didn't have time to buy. You can leave the factory to buy some, you know." "But wouldn't that be against the company's rules?" "It can't be helped. If you don't eat properly, it'll affect your work in the afternoon too. I'm sorry, but I don't have the money to buy food." I thought, again. She not only doesn't bring lunch, but she also barely has any money on her. Even as a temp, she should be making between $1,800 to $2,000 a month, including overtime. The pay might be low, but it's not so bad that she should always be struggling financially. Plus, she lives with her parents. She should have some money to spend. "Hey, are you managing your money properly? And Emily, you should take more care with your appearance." She looked down as I said this. Emily had just graduated from high school, but frankly, she was unkempt, and although she seemed to bathe, it appeared she wasn't washing her company uniform properly, as it was dirty and worn out, and she smelled bad, causing complaints from other temp workers. "I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to use the washing machine." "That can't be true. Everyone's getting upset, so please come properly dressed from tomorrow." "Yes," she nodded weakly to my words. But at that time, I didn't realize it. She was in a situation far worse than I could have ever imagined. These young people nowadays really lack discipline. That night, after finishing work and returning home, I grumbled to my wife, Susan, over dinner. About Emily again. Yes, she doesn't really bring lunch. She's careless with money, and on top of that, not washing her clothes is just the worst, don't you think? "Oh, that topic again." Susan's expression clouded. Lately, I had been complaining about Emily to my wife quite a bit. She must be tired of hearing it. But Susan's reaction was unexpected. "Maybe Emily is being mistreated by her parents." "What do you mean?" "I've been hearing some rumors in the neighborhood, and it got me thinking." Susan then told me about a recent rumor she'd heard in the neighborhood. Apparently, in a family that had moved into a public housing complex, a daughter was being neglected by her parents. The family's last name is Smith. Could it be? Well, it seems that girl is her father's stepchild, and the family treats her coldly. "Can you keep an eye on her for a while?" "Understood." I was stunned by my wife's words. But thinking about it, it explained why Emily didn't bring lunch or have any money. If her parents were taking all the money she earned. Just the thought of it made me feel sick. However, I was about to witness something even more shocking. It happened on the weekend. While shopping at the supermarket with my wife, Susan, I coincidentally saw Emily. "Come on, hurry up and walk." "Stop it, Kevin." Emily was being hit by a little boy. It was more like playful punching around her waist, but she clearly didn't like it. Besides, there were a man and a woman who looked like her parents, laughing loudly as they watched. "Look, that's Emily, the girl you were talking about." "Yeah, no doubt about it. Excuse me, I'll go over there for a moment." "Wait, Mike." I approached Emily. "Hey, what are you doing, old man?" I grabbed the boy's arm, hitting Emily, and looked at her. "Mike." Emily looked at me, trembling, with a frightened gaze. "Hey there, Emily. What a coincidence meeting you here. Shopping with your family, huh?" "Yes, that's right." Her eyes, filled with fear, shifted towards her parents, who were watching me with suspicion. "Are you Emily's parents? I've always been grateful for her help. I'm Mike, the factory manager." "Oh, is that so?" Her father responded with a suspicious look and a curt greeting. But then, he said something astonishing. About Emily's salary, can it be raised a bit? She even does overtime but doesn't bring in much money. Can't something be done about that?" "Yeah, right. We're letting you use our daughter. Pay her more." Her mother even shouted at me. "Let go, you old jerk." The boy, whom she called Kevin, tried to shake off my hand. I released his hand. "Fine. Don't mess with me," he said and ran back to his parents. "Dad, beat up that old jerk." "Kevin, not here. We'll deal with it later." The father laughed loudly and crudely at his son's words. "What's with these people?" Susan murmured beside me. She gently tugged at my clothes. It was a signal to move away from these people. "Well, we'll be going then. See you at work, Emily." "Yes. Hey, think about her pay raise, will you?" "Just wait, you old jerk." Ignoring the shouting boy, we walked away from the Smith family. Emily watched us leave with a longing gaze. Mike, thank you for yesterday." The next day at work, Emily approached me. "No, I didn't realize what you were going through. I'm sorry for any thoughtless things I've said before." "No, it's embarrassing, but I couldn't do anything about it," she said and began to slowly share her circumstances. Since her parents divorced and she was taken in by her father, Emily had always been burdened with household chores. Because of this, there were times she couldn't go to school, and after middle school, she worked part-time while attending a night high school with her father's permission. At that time, she wasn't deprived of her earnings. She had to manage everything herself, but she lived relatively freely. However, everything changed after her father remarried. Her stepmother disliked her and treated her coldly, teaching Kevin, her stepbrother, to treat Emily like a servant. Her father never reprimanded the stepmother's behavior. Instead, they demanded she pay back for being raised by taking all her earnings from her part-time jobs. Her clothes and personal belongings were thrown away by her stepmother, and she was even restricted from bathing often and washing her clothes. "That's why I couldn't wash my uniform freely, and it got all tattered. I'm really sorry," she concluded her story. I was speechless for a while, overwhelmed by her situation, which was worse than I could have imagined. Despite being in such a tough situation, I thought she was strong for enduring it alone, but also felt deeply sorry for her. Then, I handed her something. "Here, eat this if you'd like." "What is this?" She looked at the package I handed her, a confused expression on her face. "My wife made this packed lunch especially for you. She really wants you to have it. Just give me back the empty box when you're done. No rush." "Wow, your wife made this homemade lunch for me. I'm so touched." Tears welled up in her eyes. Trying to hold back her tears, she said in a trembling voice, "Thank you so much, even though I've been such a burden. It's okay. Also, could you hand me your uniform over the weekend? My wife is eager to wash it for you." "Are you sure?" to do so much for me," she responded in a tearful voice. "That's all we can do for you. And remember, if you ever want to leave your current situation, you can always talk to us." "Thank you. But what would my family say if I accepted help?" Tears streamed down her face as she tried to hold them back. "It's okay. I know someone who's an expert in these matters. We can definitely help you." I gently hugged her shoulders to reassure her. Sobbing, she expressed her feelings. "I don't want to live in that house anymore. I want to have a normal life like everyone else. Please, help me." Her pain, borne in silence for so long, resonated painfully with me. That night, the front of my house became a bit of a battleground. "Hey, where did you take Emily? Bring her out." For some reason, Emily's father came to my house demanding her return. He kept banging on the door, yelling at us inside. Susan looked at him anxiously. "Hey, are we okay?" she asked me. "We are fine. Besides, if we engage with him, our house will turn into a mess." I reassured her while holding her shoulder. "Emily wasn't even here to begin with. It's a hassle that he showed up like this. For now, I've called the police, just like you said." Susan whispered to me, holding her phone. "Good, that's the right move." I smiled at Susan and took the phone from her. I then dialed a certain number. Soon after, Emily's parents were taken away by the police. "Phew, that was scary. I'm sorry for causing this." Emily's apologetic voice came through the phone. I spoke gently to her over the phone. "No, it's okay. Did you manage to get to the station all right?" "Yes, I'm on my way to the NPO you told me about," Emily replied happily. "Yes, I was the one who helped her run away from home." The reason Emily's parents came to my house was because I had advised her to leave a note implying she was heading here. I thought it would buy her some time to escape. "But, are you sure I'll be accepted?" She sounded anxious. "Don't worry, helping kids oppressed by their parents is what that NPO does." "Thank you so much." Her voice trembled as she spoke. I could sense her near tears even over the phone. "I've done what I can. Now, it's up to you. You have to carve out your own life. You okay with that?" "Yes, I'll be fine. You've endured your family's unreasonable treatment for so long. I'm sure you'll be okay no matter what difficulties you face." "Yes. Oh, I've arrived. I'm going to hang up now." "All right, take care." "Yes. Thank you for everything, Mike." With those words, the call ended. I gently moved the phone away from my ear and smiled kindly at Susan beside me. "She'll be fine. She's brave enough to ask for help." Susan smiled back and gently held my hand. Later, I heard that the NPO had reported Emily's parents to the police, and they were being investigated. Her stepbrother Kevin was taken in by his aunt. The next day, when the employees wondered about her absence, I simply said she had moved. Years passed in the blink of an eye. "Look, Mike, we've got a Christmas card from Emily." "Really?" I exclaimed as Susan handed me the card. In the Christmas card, she appears posing with her husband. She is also holding a cute baby in her arms. All three were smiling happily. She says the baby girl was born healthy last year. "We need to send a gift." Emily had successfully severed ties with her parents and started a new family after our intervention. We still catch up over the phone every few months. She's now a mother. She's going to be a great mom. I agree. We smiled at each other while looking at the Christmas card. Though Emily had endured tough times, she was now happily living with her new family. I'm glad I listened to her plea for help back then. And I'm profoundly grateful to Susan for her support. Watching her smile, I thought this to myself. I truly wish from the bottom of my heart that she continues to lead a happy life.